Hey everybody, this is Doomhammer with another episode of the 32 team franchise, and we are updating the 14-year history of the Jacksonville Jaguars quarterbacks. So let's go ahead and get started. So first quarterback I started out with was Mark Brunell. He was the standard quarterback in 2002. He didn't play much of the first season because he was like 0-3, and I switched to David Garrard. But he was from 1994 to 2003. And then I don't remember having him on any other team. The only transaction I had was in 2007, where he was the backup for the Titans. We look at his Jaguars career and his NFL career, and even though in the real NFL he played for more teams, like he played for Washington, I know, he never started for another team. He never played for another team. So these are his entire stats with Jacksonville. When we compare that to the real Mark Brunell, of course, Mark Brunell in real life had more stats, the 32,000 over 23,000, more touchdowns. I, of course, threw fewer interceptions, ran for fewer yards, and rushed for fewer yards. Then David Garrard, who was the real quarterback for the Jaguars. He went 25-36 as a Jaguars quarterback in my franchise. All of those games were played by me. He did get signed by the Seattle Seahawks, where he went 11-7-1. Basically, he was the bridge quarterback for Tavares Jackson in Seattle, and then was a backup for most of this time there. And then you have the Houston Texans, where he started. He was 13-21 in 2 seasons. And so with that losing record, the Texans moved on from him. And then he was a backup in Green Bay and a backup in Baltimore. And that's where his career had its close. Now we look at his Jacksonville stats. About over half of it was his passing yards, touchdowns, interceptions. He had 50% of his rushing yards with Jacksonville. And actually, I guess he rushed a little bit more with some other teams there. But we see, a pretty average career. When we look at his real life versus my Madden franchise, he actually passed for less in real life. So I performed better with David Garrard than he did in real life. More everything. More interceptions, more touchdowns, more yards, and more touchdowns. Moving on, we have Chad Pennington visiting the Jacksonville Jaguars. He had his career start in the year 2000. He went 17-31 with the Jets. The season in 2004, he actually had the worst record in the league with the Jets, so they had the number 1 overall pick. And the Jets drafted Alex Smith and moved on from Chad Pennington. Oakland traded a second-round pick to acquire Pennington, where he went 5-12. And with Oakland, I tried playing them as the real Raiders, always having a hard time finding a real quarterback up until they drafted Matt Ryan in 2008. And so Pennington had 1 season with the Raiders and did not go well. And so the Raiders move on from him. And then Jacksonville gave him a chance in 2006-2007. And Pennington went 11-23. After that 11-23, just like Brunell and just like Garrard, he didn't really have much of a future after that. Went 2008, was with the Titans, and then 2011, he went back to the Jets after a few years removed, which I just was, he was a free agent, and the Jets were trying to make the playoffs, and I had Jim Storgy, I think, was the the backup to Smith, who was injured for the rest of the season, and Pennington was just filling a roster spot, but was a low overall. When we look at his Jacksonville days, he only had 6,000 yards, 48 touchdowns, 45 interceptions. Essentially, most of his career was with the Jets. When we compare his Madden playing with his NFL playing, I was surprised because I thought he had a longer career with the Jets. But I guess I outperformed his real life. So 4,000 more yards, 90 more touchdowns. 34 more interceptions. And then I had an extra touchdown rush than in real life. Then moving on to Jeff Smoker. Who's Jeff Smoker? You probably don't know. I think he was like a Michigan State quarterback. He was one of the 7th round picks or 6th round picks, whatever, in one of the draft classes for 2004. And the Eagles drafted him, and he was there as a backup quarterback for Donovan McNabb. Then he went to Oakland. Then he was nowhere. Then he went to the Chargers, and then he went to Jacksonville, where he ended up, and he was a pretty decent backup everywhere he went. Like, he played a little bit for each team. But he played 3 games for the Jaguars, went 0-3. And then they had some other quarterbacks take on the reins, which we'll see in the next few slides. Then he was a nobody in 2009, went to Miami, where he actually filled in for, I think it was, I'm trying to remember if Cam Newton was on. No, Cam Newton was not on the team. This was the year that Miami was the worst team in the league, and they were able to draft Cam Newton in 2011. But between those 2 years, he had a 2-3 record. Then he was the backup in Green Bay, backup in Houston, backup in New York, and I think I'm trying to remember if he's still on the New York Giants. He may not be because I think he might have retired. And then when we look at his stats, we see 686 of his career yards were with the Jaguars, 3 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. And when compared to his real career, he never threw a pass. He never made it on the field in the NFL. But in my franchise, he ended up being one of those like Luke McCown or one of those, journeyman backup quarterbacks that never really got a true starting chance. I think Jacksonville was his best starting chance, and maybe Miami for a little bit. But I always love this in my franchise is when I have a player like Jeff Smoker that you've never heard of. But then there are some players in the NFL that have been journeyman backups and have been on different teams and people that you know of. And you're like, oh yeah, I remember this backup quarterback. And that's basically Jeff Smoker. So Brian Brom was one of the people that played a little bit during the same Jeff Smoker era in Jacksonville because Jeff Smoker was the 2008 season, and then that was the same year we drafted Brian Brom, who was a quarterback that was like a second round in real life. He was drafted by the Packers to be the backup to Aaron Rodgers, another quarterback that never really hit the NFL field. And in my franchise, he's only been with the Jacksonville Jaguars. And he's at 1,700 yards, 17 tutties, and 14 interceptions, no rushing touchdowns. And when we compare that with his real life, he had only 252 yards in real life, 5 interceptions. He never threw a passing touchdown. So very clearly, Brian Brom had a better career in my franchise than in his real life. The other quarterback who played a little bit in 2008 and has played on and off for the Jaguars from 2006 to 2009 is Charlie Whitehurst. He went 1-5 in his career with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Then he was the backup in Carolina behind Joe Flacco from 2010 to 2012. Comparing his stats, he went 744 yards with Jacksonville, 4 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. So clearly he threw one more touchdown, about 220 some more yards when he was with the Carolina Panthers. We look at that with his real career, and he really underperformed in my franchise, where he definitely outperformed with his real career in the NFL. More of everything. 2 more interceptions, 6 more touchdowns, almost 1,500 more yards, and he actually ran some touchdowns in. Then the Super Bowl champion of the Texans, David Carr, ended up going to the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2009. Now, in his rookie year, he was the rookie of the year, and in the sophomore year, he won the Super Bowl with the Texans. Now, this success did not translate to Jacksonville, where he went 24-27 in 3 seasons. He ended up going to the Oakland Raiders to be the backup to Matt Ryan, played 1 game, and lost that game. When we look at his stats, he had 35,519 passing yards in his career. Almost 10,000 of those yards were from Jacksonville. 322 passing touchdowns, 1,500 rushing yards, 178 interceptions, and 15 rushing touchdowns. And you can see kind of the ratio to it. Most of his career was the Houston Texans. When we look at his real career versus my Madden franchise, he had 14,000 yards in real life. Let's just say we smashed it in real life, or in my franchise. So his career is fundamentally different when we look at the difference between my franchise and his real life. Then we got Nick Foles. Nick Foles was drafted to Jacksonville, went 1-8, and that was not good enough. And then he went to Chicago, where he is right now in a battle between Josh Freeman and himself for the starting quarterback job in Chicago, and it's not going well for either quarterback. We look at his career, and right now, because 2015 is currently in process, I don't have any 2015 stats. So all of his stats are from Jacksonville, which is 1,600 yards, 14 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, 1 rushing, and 47 yards. His real career, he has 14,227 yards. He also won the Super Bowl with the Eagles in real life. And so everything is better with Nick Foles. But as the quarterbacks get younger and like newer, their stats are not going to be the same as their career stats because I have to actually play with them throughout their career. And so there's a lot of work to do to get Nick Foles to 14,000 yards. And based on his start of his career, it doesn't look great, but you never know because I've brought quarterbacks that out of nowhere coming back, and then they have a great stretch as a starter, or a rookie that I didn't expect to do well is doing well. So you never know. Now we've got the current starting quarterback for the Jacksonville Jaguars, Colt McCoy. Colt McCoy was drafted by the Washington Commanders to potentially replace Michael Vick, I think, around the time. And he went 2-3, never really had a chance to truly start for them. And then he ended up going to Jacksonville, where he is 22-20, and he did make the playoffs last year, which is pretty cool. Now, Colt McCoy has most of his career stats with Jacksonville. As you can see, 8,900 yards out of his 10,200 career passing yards. So you can see a little bit of time with the Commanders. He has more touchdowns, 93 touchdowns to 79, 46, and 50. When we look at his real career, he's already surpassed his real life. So 34-32 with the Cleveland Browns and his journeyman experience. My franchise, he's doing way better. Significantly more touchdowns and yards and touchdowns with even rushing. Actually, what's interesting right now is I just noticed his rushing yards is more in real life than in my franchise. However, there's still more of his career to go, and he is the starter for the 2015 season with the Jaguars. As you can see right there till present. I'll see if I keep him as the starter because he's really struggling to get wins this season. So whether he plays the rest of the season out, he's going to have more rushing yards and more stats to pile on to his Jacksonville tenure. So there you have it, the Jacksonville Jaguars starting quarterbacks for the past 14 seasons. They are still trying to find their key franchise guy. They tried doing that with Garrard. They tried to bring in the veteran Pennington. Smoker was a journeyman. Brian Braun was supposed to be a second round, third round pick to be a change. Whitehurst, he was just a backup that got a start. David Carr was actually some quarterback stability for 3 years, but wasn't able to deliver much for them other than just being a veteran presence on their team. Nick Foles was supposed to be a potential rookie, young up-and-comer, and he is not, and he ended up leaving the team. And then Colt McCoy has kind of been the bridge guy ever since. So yeah, if you like this video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel. What's interesting with doing the 32-team franchise is that when you start out, you're just grinding away, playing one game at a time. And then when you have 14 years of playing every single game and tracking all of the stats, it's really unique to see where everybody went and how they did and their success or their failure. And this is a way of delivering it. So I hope you enjoy this video and hope you enjoy this content. There are many more teams on the way for quarterback reviews, and I'll find ways of doing like coach reviews and other things like that. But thanks for watching. I enjoy sharing this experience with all of you for however many of you watch this. But yeah, thanks for watching and hope to see you in the next video.